Bishop Justin or Archbishop Justin. We met a couple of years ago when Jenny and myself were on sabbatical in Jerusalem. I think we met at a food court in Jerusalem.
Yes.
Welcome. Kia ora is the Indigenous greeting from our land across the sea, quite a long way away from you. And so I appreciate you just giving us some time to talk about the situation in Israel, Palestine, Gaza, etc., and from your perspective. So, greetings.
Thank you. Salam. Yes, thank you. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it is. It's quite surreal actually to see you in a different context. I think we were just having a lovely meal in a food court, and I'd met your two boys in different places doing amazing mahi or amazing work in Jerusalem and Palestine, etc. So it's quite amazing to meet your whole family or some of your family at least. Anyway, it was a real privilege.
Thank you.
So maybe for our people watching in from Aotearoa, New Zealand, it'd be really great just to give us a bit about your background. What was your work and what was your ministry? What have you been doing up until obviously October 7th?
Well, I'm Palestinian Christian and Israeli citizen. I born in the city of Lydda. It's a city where Peter Hir Ananias today is next to the airport. It used to be called Lyd Airport, now called Tel Aviv or Ben Gurion Airport. The city of Lyd is more known for the place of the burial and the tomb of St. George. As you know, St. George's mother came from Lyd, and when he was persecuted by the Roman army, he ran to his hometown, his mother hometown, where he got killed, and is buried there, and his tomb is there. My family is a Christian family for many generations. We have a historical record go back to the 12th, 13th century. That was amazing for me to find those recording for that name. It's very prominent Christian family, many years in what you call the Levant area. That means today Palestine, Israel, Lebanon, Syria. But the family is very much rooted in the land, as my family built the Church of St. George of Lydda. The current church has been built in the 18th century. So they lived for many centuries in the land, in the reality of the land. In 1948, the city of Lyd got conquered by the Jewish army at that time. And in Lydda, it was one of the big massacres that happened against the Palestinian. And the people of the Lydda have been ordered out, basically ethnic cleansing, and they had to march from Lyd to Ramallah, it's north of Jerusalem. During the month of July, many people died from thirst and the difficulty of the war of the whole journey. But 200 Christians that found refuge, including my family, in the church, they were able to stay in the city, and they were confined to small area that was barbed wires, and they were suffering from similar things that we hear today from not able to get food or water. So for 1 year, they lived in the church, and eventually, as situation changed, they moved out. And the city of Lydda, the old city of Lydda, most of it has been demolished by bulldozers, like the same way it's happening in Gaza. Matter of fact, what's happening in Gaza today is reenacting what happened between 1947 to 1949, when 600 Palestinian villages were totally demolished from earth to erase all the people, culture, indigeneity, and identity. So the city of Lydda became a mixed city of Israeli Jews that came from all over the world, that been brought into the city by the army. And there were Jews from all over, from Eastern Europe, North Africa, Western Europe. And so I grew up in a mixed city of Jews, Palestinian Christian, Muslims, went to an Arab school, went to Christian school, went to Jewish high school. During my time in a Jewish high school, I was asking a lot of questions. I grew up in the Orthodox Church, and the Orthodox Church at that time was not providing me the Bible teaching and helping me. It's beautiful literature, I love it, but it was not providing me uh, the the answers that I was asking, and I ended up in a Bible study in the 70 of some of my friends, students from high school, Jews and Palestinian Christian, and we were studying the New Testament. Here and here we were had the Bible study. At that time was led by Jews that believe in Jesus. And at that time, they used to be called Jewish Christian before all the term Messianic Jews came to be later. And I found Jesus talking about occupation. I found Jesus talking about discrimination, hatred, racism, the hypocrisy of religious leaders. Of course, it's not yours, Justin, and economic gap and all of that. Uh, so Jesus of Second Temple dealing with empire, dealing with occupation, spoke to me quite a bit. That during my time at Tel Aviv University, I got involved in church work that led me later to do theological training in the state at Fuller Theological Seminary. I came back to the land in order to teach. I just began at that time Bethlehem Bible College, Palestinian students, and also in Tel Aviv area, I was teaching Jewish. And the first students, and the first Intifada started, my students were asking me questions, what the other side think about the situation. That was 1988, 89. When I answered, they didn't like it. And I said, why don't you meet with each other? Because both of you also believers in Jesus. So that should be enough common ground. Jesus died for us on the cross, reconciled us to God, to each other. They know that we are believers by our love, and Jesus prayed that we'll be one, and so on and so on. They met, and it was a disaster, catastrophe. We tried several times to bring them together, it was not working. Then, when I realized that this reconciliation is something that really required study, in depth understanding. At that time, the whole area of reconciliation in our area, but I think in other areas around the world, was weak, was not very well developed. At least some people were just talking about how to be saved, and others were concentrating on liturgy, but they were not talking about reconciliation in our part of the world. And that led me to start organization called Musalaha. And Musalaha is faith-based organization that dedicated to promote, facilitate reconciliation between people that have common faith in Jesus, but also to the larger society, Muslims, Jews, and all the communities around us. And the unique aspect of Musalaha that we, out of our situation context, not only developed theology of reconciliation, also the challenge, the biggest challenge that we have, we how to practice it, how to do it, how to live it. And that led us to discovering that reconciliation goes through 6 stages, and without going into details of that, every time we met, the first stage is the excitement. We call it the hallelujah stage or the kumbaya stage. But when we talk about the situation, people withdraw from each other. And we ask ourselves the question, how can we break that cycle? And we broke that cycle by taking Israeli and Palestinian first time student to the desert, and we crossed the desert on camels. And why it's worked very well. And each camel put Israeli and Palestinian together. Why it's worked? It's worked because In every situation we live today, there is a huge imbalance of power between people. In our context, the imbalance of power between Israeli Jews and Palestinians is immense because our conflict is not between the Israeli Jews and Palestinian. Our situation is byproduct of Western civilization, that Israel is the forefront of Western civilization as a settler colonial into our area. It's come out of uh, especially Eastern European uh, Jews suffering the Holocaust and all of that in their desire to find homeland for security, to keep their identity without going into the details of it. They wanted to establish a Jewish state in Palestine. And Palestine was not empty. People were living there. It wasn't a land without the people and people without the land, or it wasn't desert. People were living there. In order to establish the Jewish state, sadly to say, that that desire, that legitimate desire to have safety and keep your identity, came on the expense of Palestinian people, Muslim and Christian. And some of the Palestinians are originally coming from a Jewish background 2,000 years ago, especially Palestinian Christian. That the Palestinian Christian are people that lived in the land. As a matter of fact, the term Palestinian Jews were in the land until 48. That's what the area was called for thousands of years. But in order to do that, the Palestinian had to be pushed out, and if they didn't want to leave, the consequence of that would be wars and death, and what we see, what happened since after the Balfour Declaration until today. And the Western civilization sees the state of Israel as a beachhead and assumption that we have confrontation between Western civilization and Islam. That is not true. It's come out of guilt about the Holocaust. It's come out of also certain theological, especially what we call Christian Zionism, that they see the establishment of the Jewish state or the kingdom of David again, taking over Jerusalem, rebuilding the temple in order to inaugurate the second coming of Jesus. So you have here a mixture of politics, economy, history, theology, that the focus of it right now is in Palestine. So we developed 6 stages of reconciliation at Musalaha. That stages of reconciliation is a result of understanding that our situation is not the typical. It's more like what you see in New Zealand and in Australia between the Maori and the white people, and you have a struggle with it still. You have quite a bit of progress, but we have very much a similar things in from the point of view of dynamic. So how you promote reconciliation between those people, but also and the understanding that the victim, the Palestinian, are the key for reconciliation with Israeli Jews. Because people in power and position and privilege are not going to address it, only that. So, in that process, is not only liberation for the Palestinian from the occupation, but also redemption for the Israeli Jews from what is happening. Because in the end of the day, we have to learn how to live with each other as equal, as sharing together. We have to address historical atrocity of the past. We have to have compensation. And I think some of that process you in New Zealand went through. So
Can I just
Musalaha,
interrupt there?
yeah, go
Can
ahead.
I just
Sorry.
interrupt for a but no, no, it's great. So how long have you've been involved with Musalaha, and how long have you been on the reconciliation journey? So you came back from Fuller, you came back, and so how long has Musalaha been involved in reconciliation?
We started in a very small way in the early 90s, and for a few years we're kind of hitting our head in the wall, not knowing how to go until we discover that the key for to begin the process for people to be able to speak about the issues, about the historical narrative, about identity. It was a desert encounter. So the desert encounter is very fundamental key for us because in the desert you're equal. In the desert it's not us and them. In the desert the other become a human being. In the desert your enemy become the source of your survival, but also the spirituality. The desert is very important aspect of our spirituality. For all faith and religion, God took slave-minded people into the desert to transform them. Jesus went to the desert, uh, and so the desert spirituality is very important aspect because most organization that promote reconciliation in our area, they came out of the American law school, real estate school. Matter of fact, still some president in America think real estate way is the way to solve the biggest issue. It's not working out.
Yeah.
It's more than real estate. It talk about identity, belonging, understanding that land is not a riviera. The land is our belonging, our identity, the source of who we are, what we are. And especially as Palestinian Christian, this is the land Jesus born, taught, healed, crucified, and it's a universal testimony the tomb is empty. So the land is not just
And
real estate.
I'll just jump in there. Um, I think in our context of Aotearoa, many, particularly Māori, but many of us have a total growing awareness of land is not a commodity, and our understanding of land here is called whenua. The importance of whenua, and obviously our Indigenous, our Māori people are called tangata whenua or mana whenua, people of the land in that sense. So I think we there's a deep understanding in our place around you are deeply connected to the land. In some senses, I live by a river, and the local people. There's a saying here: "I am the river, and the river is me," so to speak. I just did a very bad translation, but there's that deep understanding.